Hello, my dear ladies. Today is like a dream come true. I have here with us our dear Anne Baring. She doesn't know it, but she changed my life with her beautiful book. Its name is The Dream of the Cosmos and a Quest for the Soul. This is a jewel. It is the culmination of 20 years of research. This is not her only book. She has co-authored 7 other books, always in the same idea. One of them is called The Myth of the Goddess, The Evolution of an Image, Soul Power, is everything that we're going to be talking today. About 3-4 years ago, I was in a great darkness in my soul. I was looking for something. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Now I understand that I was looking for the goddess. And maybe you have made it to this recording, to this conference, because maybe you're looking for exactly the same. And that's how I came across her book. And now I'm starting to understand why my soul was leading me there. And I hope that in this conversation, you get some clues in your journey of discovery. And I'm absolutely delighted to have you with us. And it's so vast, your work, that we can spend hours here. So I would like to jump directly to the now. We are in a great awakening of consciousness. And if you please, explain us, what is that? What is this great awakening? What are we dealing with right now?
Well, the time has come for us to change course. We've been on the wrong course, which has led us to the crisis that we're in, not only the pandemic, but also the climate crisis, because we really haven't paid attention to the teachings that we were taught, the wonderful teachings that came from great people who came to this planet to help us. So now we have to really reflect on what went wrong and what we can put right, because there's still time to put things right. One mustn't lose hope and, get in despair, because that's not right. But we have to change our understanding about the whole thing that we've been taught, first of all, by Christianity, and secondly, by scientific materialism, which has been a catastrophe for the psyche, because it's excluded everything that is of importance. So those two things, we have to look at Christianity, what we've been taught and what we haven't been taught about Christ's mission. And secondly, what scientific materialism, the scientists who really have a grip on the whole world culture with their belief that the universe is dead. Can you believe it? That consciousness originates in the neurons of the brain, not something beyond us or within us. And that when we die, that's the end of us. There's no soul, no God, and no future life. So all this is nonsense.
Absolutely. It sounds so reasonable, really, when you start going deep the rabbit hole. Let me tell you a part of the story of my life. I am Mexican. I was raised in 2 ways. In the morning, I went to Catholic school, and I learned all these things about the Virgin Mary and everything that you're talking about. And the afternoon, I was told, we, the Aztecs, fit the line. So I was privy to that ancestral knowledge, and I didn't realize how valuable it was until now.
Mm-hmm.
She is the Aztec representation of Gaia. She is the Aztec representation of Pachamama. Her name is Coatlicue. And I would love you to talk about this great mother, this great knowledge that we all had in what you talk about the lunar era.
Yes. Oh, I would love to talk about that, because it's very important to me. So once upon a time, maybe 50,000 years ago, people were in touch with the cosmos. They were shamanic consciousness, much more shamanic consciousness has been eradicated really from our Western culture. But once upon a time, people were more in touch with the deeper dimension of life. And they understood that everything came forth from the womb of the mother, from the cosmic womb of the mother, not only the earthly, but the cosmic womb. And so everything was part of her being. Everything was sacred because each and every particle of life had come from her and was connected through her. Those are two important. They came from her and they were connected through her being. And those are the two things that we've completely lost in our modern culture. We have no idea that we're connected to the earth, and we have no idea that we're connected to the cosmos through our consciousness. So that's very important. And the moon was of great importance at that time. For at least until about 5,000 before the Christian era, the moon was the supreme luminary in the sky. And people saw her as the Great Mother because she was always changing, and yet she was always the same. She came to birth as the crescent, and then she came to the full moon, and then the moon faded into the darkness of the 3 days. So there was a rhythm in people's life through watching the moon, and they connected that rhythm of the moon with the life of the earth, the seasons of the earth, and also the seasons of their own bodies. First of all, youth, and they call the maiden, the young woman, and then the mature woman, the mother, and then the crone, which is what I am now, which is the older woman who is going towards the transition, which will lead to a new life. And so they understood reincarnation as a basic fact of life, because they could see that everything was renewed, everything was regenerated. Whatever came to apparent death was regenerated the next year or the next moon cycle. So that gave them a trust in life and a trust that they were held by the Great Mother. But this gradually faded towards the, 5000 BCE, because there was a culture widely established in what's called Old Europe, which was the worship of the Great Mother, for probably something like 7,000 years before our era. But then around 3,500 BCE, a different people altogether came down from the Russian steppes, and they came down in the corridor between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, and they gradually infiltrated. They didn't exactly invade, but they infiltrated the whole area, which had been agricultural communities, worshipping the Great Mother because they were connected with the earth and they were connected with the seasons and everything. And these people brought a totally different cosmology with them based on sky gods, nothing to do with the Great Mother. And gradually, over thousands of years, this mutated into the Great Father, which we've had in the three patriarchal religions. So, and we completely lost the Great Mother, completely. We had with the Virgin Mary to some extent, but the Virgin Mary was not connected with the earth. She was exalted up into the sky, and she was immaculately conceived, and no connection with the earth at all. So this is what's happened, and we haven't been aware of it because it's happened without our knowledge. As the centuries went by, as the millennia went by, we were just taken with the flow of what people believed at that particular time. But of course, there were memories, like you say, with the Aztec goddess and Pachamama in South America. Chinese had Kuan Yin, or what came before her, the Great Mother before her. And in Africa, there was also the Great Mother in different forms. So different civilizations had at their root this image of the Great Mother. There's no question about that. And then gradually, because we really lost touch with the depths of our own soul and our connection to the earth and the cosmos, and became completely absorbed in the drama of how to conquer territories, how to survive, how to make people believe what they were told or that they had to believe, all this sort of saga of the last 4,000 to 5,000 years, we've been completely immersed in and we've forgotten what we once knew, but it's there within us, and we have to bring it forth, and we have to learn how to remember. And that's what this time of awakening is all about. It's about recollecting or remembering the parts of us which have been split apart or separated or lost. So that's a sort of brief summary of what's in my book.
And it's pretty amazing how you have summarized the whole book in that sentence. Oh, there is one thing that hurts me a lot, and I found that in your book, Well Expressed, you say, as a woman gives birth to herself, to her unique individuality, to the emerging awareness of her value as a woman, not an imitation of men, the feminine and the values of that belong to it, will also emerge in the consciousness of humanity. And this is something that I see so much. You see, my background, I'm an IT engineer with an MBA. In the past, you can see my photos of the short hair with the suit, really like trying to be the man.
Yeah, trying to be
the man. I work in engineering. I work in space, in the European Space Agency. And many women were just like that, and many women are like that, and they are fighting. So, oh, we can do it.
Yeah.
And they have a value, but now we need to really remember the feminine.
Yeah, we do.
Good of you to elaborate on
Yes, I can.
Of that.
I will go back to the root of that, because I know a great deal about the cause of why women have fallen into a loss of their own value. And it started way back in 621 BC in Palestine, when at that time there was a goddess and a god who were worshipped together, and together they created the world. But then along came a group of priests who called Deuteronomists, who changed all that, and they got rid of the goddess. They took her statue out of the temple, and they smashed all her statues, and they destroyed her groves of trees, and they wiped out all trace of her. So all that was left in Judaism was the male Yahweh God, the male Father God. And this came down to Christianity as well. But what they also did, they actually invented the myth of the fall. And in Genesis 1 and 2, 2 and 3, not Genesis 1, which is a different story, but Genesis 2 and 3, they blamed Eve for eating that apple from the tree of knowledge and initiating the fall. So there at the beginning, you have a woman blamed for the fall of man, leaving this paradisical garden of the Garden of Eden and having to go to Earth, this planet we're on, where life would be just suffering and hardship. This is what the picture that Yahweh gave to Adam and Eve as they stood trembling before him, saying, what have we done, you know? So that myth has been a catastrophe for man and for woman, because it cut woman off from her own sense of her own value, because she was blamed for the fall and everything that came after it. And it affected men's psyche, because they had a diminished image of the feminine within their own being. And so they didn't respect the feminine within themselves, and they didn't respect women, and were left with the misogyny that we've still got today, deep in the culture. It's not gone away, in spite of the fact that women like yourself have become engineers or politicians or therapists, or all sorts of careers have opened to them, but they're still regarded as really not as good as men. That's deep, deep, deep in the psyche. And it goes back 2,500 years in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And so also there's another thing which I've been writing on and giving a talk on, is the fact that Mary Magdalene was married to Jesus. And this has been completely concealed by the Catholic Church. They did everything they could to turn Mary Magdalene into a whore and a prostitute, and wipe out all evidence that she was married to Jesus. But it's absolutely obvious to me, and also because of a book which has been published a few years ago called The Gospel of the Beloved Companion, which is actually written by Mary Magdalene. It's the only authentic text we have, contemporary text of what actually happened with Jesus' mission and with what led to the crucifixion and his resurrection. So I've been following all this story quite recently, so it's very fresh in my mind. But the combination of the myth of the fall and the role of Eve, secondly, the fact that the marriage of Mary Magdalene to Jesus was denied, has meant that we have no image of the sacred marriage at the root of our culture. We have a celibate Son of God, the only Son of God. And Jesus' teaching was about that we were all children of God. He never said he was the Son of God. That was the church who established that myth. And millions of Christians believe it absolutely wholeheartedly.
My question to you then will be, why? Why will we have Maria Magdalene reduced to the idea of a prostitute? Why do we have Mary reduced as the virginal goddess, or the virginal mother? Why are were women blamed as witches? Is it that they are scared of us, that we are dangerous? Why?
Yeah, it goes back to the early Christian fathers. They were really terrified of what they called the place between feces and urine. In other words, the vagina. They were terrified of it. And whether they had terrible mothers, which they may have had, who really treated them cruelly and everything, I don't know, because there's no evidence of that. But this is where it started. It started with St. Ambrose, St. Augustine, someone called Tertullian, who was appalling. He was a lawyer, but he absolutely lambasted women as being beneath contempt for what they had done with the myth of the fall, taken the apple from the tree of knowledge. And because of that, they said Jesus had to die. So it was all woman's fault that Jesus had to die. I mean, the sequence of thought in Christian theology is incredible, really, how they put 2 and 2 together and made 10. And how they elevated the Virgin Mary from the woman that she was into a goddess. She became the Christian goddess, very similar to the other goddesses like Isis and Artemis and the great goddesses of the ancient world. But she was not connected with the earth. That was the difference. And neither was Jesus. But his teaching was in the Aramaic language. It's absolutely steeped in the language of nature, his actual Aramaic language. If you translate the Bible into Aramaic, back into Aramaic, you get the feeling of the beauty of nature and the wonder of nature. And this is completely gone from Christianity. And we've become separate, little by little, we've become completely separate from the natural world. Believing ourselves to be able to control it and dominate it in the way that science has been trying to do, and technology. So can you understand from what I've been saying what's happened?
Absolutely. There is a wonderful quote. Now it's going to have a bit hard to find it. That is good. I have so many notes on your book, but there is a quote from somebody else that you mentioned. If we won the war against the earth, we will lose.
Yes.
And this is what we're doing. We try to be so controlling with our technology that we are just wasting everything. We're wasting life.
Yes, we are, but we're not knowing what we've been doing. But we are learning now. We can beginning to see what we've done to pollute the oceans with plastics. We've seen how the animals have diminished and the insects have diminished so much, hugely, really, in the last 20 years. And we have somebody like Sir David Attenborough teaching us. He's a great teacher. And he is really awakening millions of people. And also Greta Thunberg is doing the same thing for the young. So we have people who are like the prophets of old, who are speaking and saying, wake up before it's too late. And the politicians, of course, they're coming along behind slowly, but they will have to get their act together within 5 to 10 years. Otherwise, we will have had it. So this great conference that's taking place in Glasgow in the 1st of November, that's supposed to bring all these people together, the politicians. But China and Russia are not coming, and Saudi Arabia are not coming. So 3 immensely wealthy countries and important countries are not going to join in. But this is the stubbornness of the male psyche, which has been programmed to rivalry rather than working together, because he's missing the feminine principle. And the feminine principle is all about relationship and making agreements with other people, listening to what the other person is saying. But men find it very, very difficult to do this because they are programmed to think that they have to defend themselves against attack. This is in the psyche. You can't blame them for it. This is for thousands of years. This is what they've been taught, that they have to prepare for the next attack. So they have to have these nuclear weapons. They have to have everything, to submarines with weapons on them and everything. It's just unbelievable how they cannot see that they've been programmed. So this is where women, the role of women is so important, to help men to wake up and to be with men, not against men. Otherwise, they get into the old pattern of antagonism and rivalry. But they have to really work sympathetically with men, because men have the genius to be able to change things. They have the engineering skills and that you've got, and many other skills that they've got, because for thousands of years, this has been their role, to protect society, to protect the group that they belong to. So they have it there in their genes, but what they don't have is the fact that they all have to get on well together. We have to work together now in a planetary sense, because the planet needs this, and we're part of the planet, and the planet is calling out to us saying, help me, change your pattern of living and listen to what I'm trying to say to you. And also the cosmos, because our consciousness comes from the cosmos. It's only a tiny fraction, but we are all connected through that consciousness. There's no separation between any of us at the very deep subatomic level. You probably know about atomic physics, but quantum physics has discovered that we're all connected at the deepest level of what they call the Planck element, whatever its proper name is, the Planck spherical unit, they call it. So these billions and trillions and trillions and trillions of Planck spherical units are connecting all of us, because they're inside us and inside everything. We're all connected, but we don't know it. And so we think that we're separated into nations or genders or tribes or beliefs or religions or whatever. All these separate things have come up in the last 4,000 years, but they're not valid anymore.
There's so many directions. You make me think about the men who don't know what to do right now and they end up committing suicide. You have the skyrocketing rates of suicide by gender, the gender wars, the women who are saying, oh, I don't have enough, and they behave like men, more protection.
Yeah, they do.
And I feel that that's my belief is that change starts with us individually and us collectively. So it is a dual thing of we need to work on ourselves and in sisterhood so that we can create community. If the audience are women who are highly educated, these engineers like I used to be, who had forgotten the goddess or maybe have never met her, what could you tell them? What could they do personally or collectively?
Okay, what they can do is, what I didn't tell you was that the goddess that the Deuteronomists destroyed and wiped out, she was called the goddess Asherah of Palestine, but also she was called the Holy Spirit, and she was called divine wisdom. And that comes into the Kabbalistic tradition, because there you find the male and the female together, a unit, as a marriage, as it were. And the feminine aspect descends into the world and brings the world into being and lives within it. So she is within all of us. And I would suggest what I do. I speak to the Holy Spirit. I say, please help us. Please tell us what to do. And you can see her as a great feminine being, like the cosmic dream that I had, which I describe in chapter 2, I think, of my book. I had a vision of a cosmic woman, and that changed my life because I understood what I was missing. And I was made in her image, only teeny weeny little image, and she was the great cosmic goddess, so to speak. So that began me working on the myth of the goddess, and then working on the dream of the cosmos. All that came from that dream of the cosmic woman, or the vision of the cosmic woman. So I think this is what women can do today, rather than appealing to God the Father, appeal to God the Mother in the form of any goddess that appeals to them. Any particular goddess you can choose. You can choose the Virgin Mary, actually. You can choose Isis. You can choose Demeter, the Greek goddess, anyone that, or your Aztec goddess, anyone that really, Pachamama, resonates for you. It's important not to feel directed into anything particular. You have to find it yourself. And for me, it is the Holy Spirit and divine wisdom, because it's just such a lovely image of the wisdom of the consciousness coming through in a feminine image. And if you look in the Old Testament, in the book of Proverbs, you find that, and the book of Ben Sirach, or Ecclesiastes, I think it is, she is there as the co-being with God, so to speak. The masculine and the feminine are together there. And he couldn't do without her, and she couldn't do without him. And that's the sort of relationship we need to rediscover, women and men together, that they are essential to each other. And you have the Taoist image of the yin and the yang, and the two sort of lozenges that are together in the circle. But one, you can't have one without the other, because the circle is made up of the two. Yeah. And the Taoists say that in the beginning was the one, and out of the one became two, and that's the yin and the yang, and then out of the two came the 10,000 things, which is our material reality. It's so beautifully put and so simply put. You know, so you can look at other traditions. You don't have to stay within the Christian tradition, and you certainly don't need to stay within the materialist scientific one, because that has really killed the soul. It's given us no future. It's given us no relationship. It's given us no love. Where is love in that terrible philosophy? Yeah. Or ideology? It's an ideology, really. And because of the fading of Christianity, there was a big gap, and scientific materialism over the last 3 centuries has filled that gap. Mm-hmm. But it can change, because there are people I know now who are talking about a new Copernican revolution in science. There are many scientists who are not happy with the image that they've been given, and they're beginning to work out a new concept of the universe in which everything is joined together, like I said, no separation, and in which there is an evolutionary intention in the cosmos, which is in us as well, as we're part of the cosmos.
I guess this is also, this last part, the cosmic part, would be possibly your answer towards forgiveness, because many women are still in the repeating the stories of we have been raped and we have been, I don't know, killed and smashed, and they are still in this drama, victimhood. And I get it. Of course, I also was sexually assaulted, but if we don't step out of that victimhood, then we're not going to be able to contribute as leaders.
That's right, because so long as you're in the victimhood, you're in a polarized situation in which the opposites, male and female, are conflicting. So you have to find the third, the understanding of the depth, the greater depth, which can hold these two conflicting opposites, and also can hold the pain and the suffering that went with it. But also think of the suffering that men went through, having to be warriors generation after generation, having to give their lives for their tribe, and lying on the battlefield wounded and dying alone. You know, that is an utter tragedy that men have been conditioned to accept. to fight for their country or their tribe or their clan or whatever it was. And women were witnesses, if you like, of the men who had to go out and fight. And many didn't come back, and then they were left alone with no support. So it's not only the women who've suffered, it's equally the men in a different way, because their bodies have been sacrificed as women's bodies have been raped and burnt at the stake. But men have already also been sacrificed by the sword or the bomb. If you look at what happened in D-Day in Europe, and the incredible courage of those men setting off in boats from England to cross to the French coast, and men being killed as they arrived on the coast and seeing their comrades dying beside them. That is courage such as women hadn't really had to find. Mm-hmm. And they had to find that going back 4,000 years, all through those 4,000 years. So I have great sympathy for men, for what they've suffered, and for their wound. So I think together we can, men and women together, they can heal these wounds and go forward to a different place and a new understanding, a new relationship with each other. But there are wounds in both men and women, you can't deny that. And but it's no good being angry, because anger doesn't really heal. You have to feel love. You have to feel compassion, both for yourself and for the men.
Absolutely. I feel that the answer is just that. Love is the great work of alchemy, the process of soul transmutation. You could summarize it in love.
Yes, you could.
You could.
What scientists are discovering now, the new scientists, is that the whole universe is held together by love. Isn't that extraordinary? And that love had brought forth the material world that we're in and will draw it back to itself again. But love is the key factor in everything, holding the universe together. And also it's where our capacity for love comes from, our capacity for loving our children or for animals. We've all of us felt love for something or other in our life, whether a cat or a dog or a baby or a parent or a child. So that capacity for love comes to us from the universe. And I think
when we'll stay in that, in the love, we will be able to go beyond this illusion of fear and separation.
I think so, because that is a programming. Fear and separation is a long, long programming. And we've been told with science that when we die, we don't go on to another world, so to speak, which is all wrong. So we have to get over the fear of death, which is also beneath a lot of this fear, is fear of death, the way we've been taught about it. And we have to understand that we are immortal. We don't die ever. We are part of the immortal substance of the universe, which is an extraordinary realization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the way my tradition told me, the Aztec tradition told me that we went to another place. And this has brought me so much peace. Every 1st and 2nd of November, we get as visitors our dear departed. And you see your grandma that comes to visit you. It's not Halloween, it's not about being scared. And that gives you the idea and the feeling of eternity and peace and not fear of, oh, which illness is going to kill me? Or, well, it's a transition.
It was always a festivity for meeting the ancestors and communing with them and learning from them.
Yeah.
In those days, Halloween and was a very special time, really.
Yeah. Oh, I think I can talk with you forever. Let's start closing the conversation. What do you feel that our audience, our ladies, need to hear? What would be the last point that you would like to bring to them?
I think that they need to trust themselves. They need to listen to their hearts. They need to go out of the mind and down into the heart and breathe breathe in through the heart every morning when they're sort of waking up, connect with their heart and say, I'm going to live from my heart today. And there's a very good organization called Heart Math, which they could tune in with. They could learn a lot from that, how you actually connect with your heart. And then from that, I would say, learn to trust yourselves, what you're doing. If you come up in a situation which is confrontational, remember that your heart, first of all, before you attack or before you try and gain power over somebody else, remember the deeper connection between all of us, and just cultivate the capacity for love in whatever you're doing in your life. Love for your parents, love for your children, love for your animals, love for the earth. And that can develop and grow. It's like a plant which you put into the soil and then you nourish with water and perhaps a bit of plant food. And then the plant begins to grow and it gets stronger. This is what Jesus said with the mustard seed. Do you remember the grain of mustard seed that can grow into a great tree? Oh, there's one other thing that I forgot to tell you, which is that all of us carry divinity within us because we're part of the cosmos. So that little portion of divinity is probably held in the heart region. That's where it's located, so to speak. So that's why connecting with the heart is so important. We connect with our divinity when we do that. So I think that is the last and final and most important thing, because we've been taught that there was only one savior, whereas all of us are potential saviors and we are all divine. It wasn't only Jesus who was the only Son of God, or the Buddha, for instance. The Buddha said the same thing. He said, you have a Buddha nature, he said, and people have completely forgotten that they carry this divinity within them, which was, of course, the Gnostic teaching, which came after Jesus, was kept alive by them. But then it was persecuted by the church, so the Gnostics were pretty well wiped out. And there's just a few today, like me, who are good old Gnostics and who are bringing up the old knowledge that's been forgotten and spreading it around like lovely strawberry jam on bread.
Oh, it's so beautiful. What you're saying touches my heart deeply, because I've been talking for years about my dream of the heart-centered economy. And doing business and having relationships, making business decisions, taking this divine center, this filter of, is it compassionate? Will it help the next 7 generations? Not is it going to make money, but does it really make sense from the love point of view, from the divine point of view? And what I love is that you use the word divine. That's so, and then it's proven by the HeartMath Institute of the power of a coherence and the electromagnetic power of the heart connected to the universe.
That's right. When we're in touch with our hearts, we're in touch with the heartbeat of the earth and the heartbeat of the universe, which is amazing. And when we get out of sync with that, well, then we get distressed and stressed and anxious and worried and commit suicide because life has no meaning. So we have to say to all women, life has wonderful meaning. It has incredible wisdom and beauty. And we just have to recognize that that lives within ourselves as well as around us in other people and in the universe, and never get discouraged and depressed. Don't take antidepressants. If you get to the age of 50 or so, take HRT, which is what I've done. And I'm now nearly 90, and I've been on HRT for 30 years. And I'm very healthy, and my mind works. I'm still writing. So women of menopausal age should never despair that there's something that can help them. So that's my final word, because women don't know that HRT can have this effect on them.
What is HRT? What is HRT?
HRT is hormone replacement therapy.
I didn't know HRT, and so then you have a great experience with it.
Yeah, fantastic. But doctors warn you, oh, you might get cancer, you might get this and you might get that. But in fact, it strengthens the heart, it strengthens the bone structure, so that you don't get weak bones. And it just keeps you healthy and happy. And also your mind doesn't deteriorate. You don't get Alzheimer's, you don't get senility, because there's a lack of hormones when you get to 50, 60, 70 sort of thing. If you don't have help, not all women need it, but certainly some women like me certainly needed it. So if you need it, insist that you're given it and don't listen to your doctor trying to put you on antidepressants.
No, antidepressants, not a good idea. Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Oh, and what a pleasure. Thank you so much for this conversation. I hope it's not the last one, because women need to hear this story again and again. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to pour all this out, which is lovely for me, because I have this to give, and I love to give it to women, to be of help to women. Yeah. So thank you so much for inviting me, Blanca. It's lovely.
You're welcome.